Happy Tuesday, it's Shannon Wilkie with the Shine Advocacy Group. Today I want to talk to you about specific learning disabilities. So that's the name that the eligibility falls under at school. So many times clients will contact me and they'll say, my child has dyslexia, and the school won't recognize the dyslexia. The school's just going to call it a specific learning disability in reading, because there's certain educational criteria legally, and they have certain categories that the IEP would need to fall under. And if your student has a reading, writing, or math disability, that would fall under a specific learning disability, and it would be that criteria for the IEP. So let's take a reading disability. Your student has a reading disability, they've already been diagnosed. Okay, so they have the diagnosis. What to do now? When you present that diagnosis to school, they're gonna kind of take the medical and turn it into educational, which would be taking the dyslexia, the reading disability or disorder, and calling that a specific learning disability in reading. It's the same thing. You're going to get reading interventions. Do I think that students who have specific learning disabilities should have 504 plans or accommodations? No, I don't. 99.9% of the time it won't bring the skills up. So if the student has a learning disability, they have a skill set that needs to be taught differently. They have a learning difference, and therefore they need specialized education in 99.9 times out of 100 to bring that learning skill up. So we've covered the reading. The next one is the writing. So if they have written expression or a writing disorder, educationally, that's called dysgraphia in the medical. So you might get a neuropsych report or a psychological report, and it says dysgraphia. You bring it to school and they're calling it specific learning disability in writing. That's standard because the category is specific learning disability, and you can get help with that. That's that pathway between mind to paper. And these kids have a lot of difficulty with writing. Sometimes it's letter formation, but sometimes it's just getting those thoughts from the mind to paper. And there's a lot of help that can happen with that. The third is a math disorder at school. It's called a specific learning disability in math. Outside of school, it's called dyscalculia. So that is a math specific learning disorder. All three of those often go hand in hand. So I literally was just looking at a report, and the student has ADHD and then the three common specific learning disabilities. That's got to be very, very difficult for a parent to process. But know that you are not alone. Most students that I work with will have multiple coexisting difficulties in their learning. And to get this information as early as possible, to have these evaluations as early as possible, a lot of help can happen where it is common for us to have the reevaluation, which happens every 3 years in the school setting, the educational setting. And then the students may not need services at school anymore because they may have brought up their lagging skills in reading, writing, or math by having those interventions that are so important. So again, in summary, a specific learning disorder is sometimes called a learning disability, and it's just a neurodevelopmental disorder. And it's, usually diagnosed in school age, and they are just, reading, writing, and math, and they can fundamentally change how a student learns. So at school, the IEP would have interventions where a specialized teacher who's versed in the reading, writing, and math interventions would work in a small group or one-on-one with your student, or come alongside them and work on specific goals to help bring up that lagging skill. So if you just get that information and you're wondering why it reads differently in IEP, I hope that helps you. And if you have any questions on how to get a diagnosis, reach out. You can start with your pediatrician, but they likely, or they in all cases will refer you. I like to go to someone who is a neuropsychologist, has some type of neuro training, or a psychologist who's definitely versed in learning disabilities and educational type evaluations. The school is also responsible under something called Child Find. If you suspect and if the school sees some learning differences where the student may need specialized instruction, if you suspect reading, writing, or math, they can do the same evaluations. So reach out if you would like help getting evaluations, and stay tuned for next month when I go over all the different type of evaluations that can happen to find out these answers for your child. Thank you.